This chapter begins our story by looking at an important meeting. Two leaders met from countries with a difficult past. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung sat down with Japan's new Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. This was a big event for both nations. They have a long history of problems that often make it hard for them to work together. Prime Minister Takaichi had just taken office in October 2025. She was Japan's first female prime minister. However, many people in South Korea felt worried about her. She is known for her strong conservative ideas and strict views on history. These views had caused concern about how the two countries' relationship would go in the future. The meeting took place in Gyeongju, South Korea, in late October 2025. It was planned to be a short talk, but something surprising happened. The meeting lasted much longer than anyone expected. This extra time showed that both leaders found value in their discussion. It was a good sign for their relationship. After the meeting, both President Lee and Prime Minister Takaichi shared positive messages. President Lee said he was no longer worried. He felt very good about the conversation. Prime Minister Takaichi also spoke about the growing need for cooperation between their countries. They both agreed to meet more often. Their goal is to build a stronger and more forward-looking relationship. This first meeting raises an important question for our story. Can these two nations, with all their past challenges, truly start a new, better future together? Is it possible for them to overcome their difficult history and find a way to work side by side? 2. A difficult past. Japan and South Korea share a very long and difficult past. This history has made it hard for them to be close friends, even today. Many old problems still affect their relationship. One of the biggest problems started many years ago. From 1910 to 1945, Japan ruled over Korea. This period lasted for 35 years. During this time, Japan tried to change Korean culture and use Korean resources. Many Koreans faced very hard times. They lost their land and their freedom under Japanese rule. Many people suffered greatly during this colonial period. A sad part of this history is about forced labor. Thousands of Korean men were forced to work in mines and factories in Japan without proper payment. They could not refuse. Another very painful issue involves comfort women. These were women, mostly from Korea, who were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during the war. This caused great pain and shame for them and their families. After the Second World War, both countries tried to fix these historical issues. In 1965, Japan and South Korea signed a treaty. This treaty was supposed to normalize their relationship. Japan provided money to South Korea, saying it settled all claims from the colonial period. However, many Koreans felt that this money was not true compensation for their suffering. They believed it did not properly address the harms done to individuals. Years later, in 2015, another agreement was made. This one was specifically about the comfort women issue.
Both nations called it a final and irreversible solution. But many of the surviving comfort women and their supporters did not accept it. They felt the agreement did not fully acknowledge their pain or offer a sincere apology from Japan. Because of this, the agreement did not truly solve the problem. Today, these old problems still cause new tensions. South Korean courts often rule in favor of victims. They order Japanese companies to pay money for forced labor or for comfort women. Japan strongly disagrees with these court decisions. Japan says all historical claims were settled by the 1965 treaty. These ongoing court cases often make the diplomatic relationship between Japan and South Korea very difficult and tense, showing that the wounds from the past are still open. 3. The new Prime Minister. Sanae Takaichi became Japan's new Prime Minister in October 2025. This was a big moment for Japan, as she was the first woman ever to become Prime Minister. People around the world, especially in neighboring South Korea, paid close attention to her election. Ms. Takaichi was known for her strong conservative ideas. She believed in traditional values and held very firm views on many issues. A key part of her political identity was her stance on Japan's history. She often visited the Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo. This shrine is important for honoring Japan's war dead. However, it also honors some convicted war criminals from World War II. These visits are very controversial. For South Korea, Ms. Takaichi's visits to the Yasukuni Shrine and her strong opinions about historical matters were a big problem. South Korea suffered greatly under Japan's rule from 1910 to 1945. Many people in South Korea see the shrine as a symbol that Japan does not truly regret its past actions. Because of this, Ms. Takaichi's election made South Korea very nervous. Before her, Japan had other leaders who tried to make relations better with South Korea. They worked to solve old problems. But with Ms. Takaichi's conservative and often unyielding views on history, many in South Korea worried that this progress would stop. They feared that the improving friendship between the two countries might go backward. Her appointment caused great concern in Seoul, South Korea's capital. People wondered if she would continue the diplomatic efforts of past prime ministers. They thought her hardline perspective could make the difficult history between Japan and South Korea even harder to overcome. This made the future of the relationship between the two important East Asian nations look very unclear. It was clear that a new kind of leader was now in charge, and many waited to see what she would do. 4. The important meeting. The important meeting between South Korean President Lee Jae-myung and Japan's new Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi took place in late October 2025. This was their first face-to-face meeting since Takaichi became Japan's Prime Minister just weeks before. The leaders met in Gyeongju, South Korea, on October 30, 2025. Their meeting happened during the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. People were watching this meeting with great interest. It was scheduled for only 20 minutes. However, it went on for much longer, lasting 40 minutes. This extension was seen as a very positive sign in diplomacy. When leaders choose to talk for more time than planned, it means they are finding good reasons to speak. It signals that discussions are going well and there is a shared interest in moving forward. During their talks, President Lee and Prime Minister Takaichi decided to focus on future cooperation. President Lee said that it was a key moment for their two countries to strengthen how they work together. He called for a future-oriented partnership. Prime Minister Takaichi agreed, saying that cooperation was becoming more important due to current global challenges. Both leaders expressed a desire to meet more often. They talked about starting shuttle diplomacy, where they would take turns visiting each other's capitals. This practice helps leaders build strong personal relationships and keep lines of communication open.
A very notable detail was what was not discussed. The leaders did not directly mention the difficult historical problems between their nations. These issues, related to Japan's colonial rule over Korea from 1910 to 1945, have often strained their relationship. By avoiding these sensitive topics, they signaled a new focus. Instead of old disagreements, they prioritized building a better future together. President Lee described past tensions as familial-like conflicts common between close neighbors. Prime Minister Takaichi shared this view, suggesting a desire to move past old arguments. This first important meeting, though brief, marked a significant step. It showed that both leaders were willing to put aside some of the past and explore new paths for cooperation. The extended time and the focus on the future offered a hopeful beginning for their relationship, suggesting a pragmatic approach to a complex history. 5. A surprising result. After the meeting, there were many good feelings. People were surprised by what South Korean President Lee Jae Myung said. He spoke on November 1, 2025, after the APEC summit ended. President Lee said he felt very positive about his talk with Prime Minister Takaichi. He added, "I am no longer apprehensive." This meant he was no longer worried about their future. He believed they could build a good partnership by facing issues directly and working together. This change in President Lee was important. Before the meeting, many people were worried. They thought Prime Minister Takaichi's strong conservative ideas about history would make things worse between Japan and South Korea. Her past actions had caused concern in Seoul. But after they met, President Lee clearly changed his mind. His positive reaction gave many people hope. A reporter asked President Lee if Takaichi would act differently now that she was prime minister. Lee suggested her perspective will be and should be different from her earlier role as a politician. He explained that a leader in a high position must think about many things. This often makes leaders more practical, even with strong views. They need to balance different priorities and international duties. Prime Minister Takaichi also spoke to the press on November 1. She called her meetings at the APEC summit significant diplomatic accomplishments.
She said it was an important chance to talk with responsible leaders. She described her discussions, including those with South Korea and China, as forthright discussions with vital neighboring countries. She believed cooperation was more important now than ever due to the world situation. Both leaders made a promise to meet often. They agreed to continue shuttle diplomacy. This means they will take turns visiting each other's countries. These reciprocal visits are a traditional way to deepen ties and communicate. They showed a commitment to improving the relationship. Both countries wanted to build a stronger future, moving past old difficulties. They aimed to create a partnership that would benefit both nations and help them work together. 6. New dangers, new friends. The world had changed. It was now a more dangerous place for many countries. For Japan and South Korea, new threats appeared in their region. A big worry was the strong friendship between North Korea and Russia. These two countries became close military partners. In June 2024, Russia and North Korea signed a special defense agreement. This meant they would help each other with their armies. This new alliance was a serious problem for Japan and South Korea. It made the area less stable. Both Japan and South Korea saw North Korea's growing military power as a direct threat to their safety. North Korea was developing nuclear weapons and missiles. With Russia's help, these capabilities could become stronger. This worried leaders in Tokyo and Seoul very much. The United States, a close friend to both Japan and South Korea, watched these changes carefully. The U.S. wanted its allies to be strong and work together. They believed a united front was important to manage the new dangers. The U.S., Japan, and South Korea spoke together. They strongly said that the military cooperation between North Korea and Russia was wrong. They saw it as a threat to peace. Because of these shared security problems, Japan and South Korea felt they had to cooperate more. Even with their difficult history, the new dangers were too big to ignore. The United States pressed both nations to strengthen their partnership. This pressure came from the need to respond to a changing world. Leaders in Japan and South Korea understood that working together would make them safer. They knew facing these new threats alone would be harder. This situation was forcing the two countries to put aside some past disagreements. The need to protect their people and region from common enemies became a top priority. They started to see that shared threats could help them find ways to work together. The alliance between North Korea and Russia created a strong reason for Japan and South Korea to become new friends, at least for security. They needed each other now more than ever. This new reality changed how they thought about their relationship, moving them towards necessary cooperation. 7. A leader's choice. Leaders of countries always face hard choices. South Korean President Lee and Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi know this very well. They must make decisions that serve their own people, but these choices are often complex.
In South Korea, many citizens still want Japan to properly address its past actions, especially regarding colonial rule and historical harms. On the other side, in Japan, some groups expect their prime minister to uphold a strong, firm view on historical matters. Both leaders feel significant pressure from these different groups within their own nations. Despite these strong domestic feelings, Lee and Takaichi made a clear choice during their meeting. They decided not to focus on the difficult historical issues that have long divided their countries. Instead, their talks centered on practical ways to work together in the present and build a better future. This was a very pragmatic decision. It allowed them to move beyond old arguments and find common interests. They understood that the world was changing quickly, and they needed to face new, shared challenges together, rather than staying stuck in the past. This pragmatic approach immediately helped them create a more functional working relationship. For example, the global security environment has become much more dangerous. North Korea and Russia have formed a close military partnership. This new alliance is a significant threat to both Japan and South Korea. The United States, a key ally for both, strongly encourages them to work together. Facing these common security problems, Lee and Takaichi found it necessary to cooperate. They recognized the benefits of working together on economic matters, technology, and defending their nations against new threats. This shared need for security and stability became a stronger focus than past grievances. After their meeting, President Lee expressed that he felt much more positive and was no longer worried. He believed that Takaichi, as prime minister, would act differently compared to her previous political roles. However, the path ahead still holds challenges. While Takaichi showed a practical side in her talks with South Korea, she continues to hold firm positions on other sensitive issues. For instance, she openly met with a representative from Taiwan and later shared photos of their meeting on social media. This action led to a formal protest from China, which considers Taiwan part of its territory. This incident shows that Takaichi still has strong, assertive policy instincts on certain foreign policy matters. Her willingness to take such a stance on Taiwan highlights that while a pragmatic working relationship can be formed, deeper disagreements and potential new difficulties in the region still remain. 8. The road ahead. The meeting between President Lee and Prime Minister Takaichi was a hopeful and important first step. It showed that Japan and South Korea could talk. The meeting lasted longer than planned, about 40 minutes, which was a good sign. President Lee said he felt very positive about it and was no longer worried about the new prime minister. He believed Takaichi would act differently now that she was a leader. Both leaders decided they would meet more often, visiting each other's countries. They wanted to focus on a future-oriented partnership. However, this meeting did not solve the old problems. The long and difficult history between the two countries, including issues like forced labor and comfort women, remains unresolved. South Korean courts still make decisions about these historical claims, which Japan often disagrees with. These past issues still make the relationship difficult for many people in both nations. Despite these old problems, Japan and South Korea are now working together because they face new, common threats. The world has become a more dangerous place. North Korea's military has grown stronger, and it has a new, close military partnership with Russia. This new alliance worries both Japan and South Korea. The United States, a friend to both countries, also wants them to cooperate. These shared security concerns are a strong reason for the two nations to put aside past arguments and work as partners. Their future relationship depends on whether this practical cooperation can continue. The leaders chose to focus on present dangers and future goals, avoiding direct talks about history. This pragmatic choice helps them work together now. But the path forward is promising yet still uncertain. The deep historical wounds are still there, even if they are not talked about every day.
Do you think shared modern problems are strong enough to overcome deep historical wounds?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.